Hello ladies and gentlemen, how's it going? My name's Joshua Wren and this is the first in, I hope, many of my new podcast. I haven't got a name for it yet, not an imaginative name anyway, so I'm just going to call it the Joshua Wren podcast. If anyone else has ever seen Inside the Actor's Studio, you know the host, James Lipton, shouts out to, I think it's Bernard Pivot, an inspiration of his. So in the same vein, I'm going to shout out to Joe Rogan. I first got interested in doing things like this through his podcast, and I've been exposed to many people and many disciplines I never ever thought I'd be exposed to. So shout out to him. Hopefully I'll keep doing it and I'll shout out him every single time. And you'll notice as well that I'm not going to edit my podcast. I'm not going to take out any ers. If I mess up, if I screw up, sorry, I'm not going to take it out. The plan is to eventually have guests on, and I don't ever want to edit or censor anything, so that has to start with me. If I screw up or I say a naughty word or I fall over and black out for a minute, it's staying in. So unfortunately, you'll have to deal with it. Hopefully you don't really mind that much and you can come along for the ride. So quickly, a little bit about me. As I said, my name is Joshua Wren. I'm originally from the northeast of England. I moved to uni in Sheffield, got my degree in applied mathematics, and then moved to just outside of London to work. I've always been a fan of combat sports for as long as I can remember. I used to train a little bit. I've never competed. I don't think I'm good enough to compete, but I've trained quite a bit. I'm out of action at the minute, and we'll come to that later in the podcast. Also, I'm recently unfat. I'm still a big dude, but I got to about 310 pounds, and I weighed in this morning at 240, so it's about 70 pounds off. I hesitate to use the word journey because it's pretty cliched, but hopefully, if I keep going, you can come on the journey with me and see how far I get. I'm just starting to compete in powerlifting. My coach, Jay, thank you very much. He's got me into it, and I'm doing pretty well so far. I haven't had a full competition yet, but I'm improving week on week, month on month. So hopefully I can sometime soon get into actually competing. One of the other things I'm really into is tattoos. Anyone that knows me knows I'm covered in tattoos, and it's not just an addiction for me. Again, sounds super cliched, but it's kind of a way of life. If I'm interested in a tattoo, for example, I'm into archaeology, and I'm also into evolution. Darwin's a kind of a big hero of mine. I've recently got a portrait of Charles Darwin, but on that, I've become interested in archaeology, and I want to get a tattoo of a direwolf skull. So I spent the day on Friday walking around the Natural History Museum in London looking for inspiration. I don't just want to get the skull and surround it with a little bit of leaves and whatever crap. I want it to be accurate. So I spent the entire day walking around the Natural History Museum looking for accurate, I guess, flora from that period, from the Pleistocene era. So spent a day walking around there, getting some good inspiration, taking photos, and then hopefully, along with one of my best friends who runs a tattoo shop, we can put a design together and get it done. Anyway, first podcast, I thought, why now? And well, I've got not really a great deal going on at the minute, but also a lot going on at the minute. I'm off work because I'm getting my third surgery on Wednesday. In my quest to not be a fat guy anymore, I pushed it a bit too hard and ruined my knee. It's a bit embarrassing, really. I did combat sports. I was never really serious about it, but I did combat sports for a number of years. I did kickboxing and MMA. Never had an injury, a couple of broken ribs and a bruised ego every now and then, but never a major injury. And then playing football, of all things, or soccer for any American people, I really did my leg in. I severed my ACL, all from one injury. Severed my ACL, tore the cartilage in two in my left knee, and bruised the bone caps of my fibula and my femur. I kept playing. That wasn't silly northern tough guy toughness. That was just adrenaline. Kept playing. I finished the game up, and then when the adrenaline wore off, it became apparent pretty quickly that I'd pretty badly damaged my knee. Went to hospital. They told me there was nothing wrong with it. It was a sprain. Kept checking back with the doctors every 6-7 days. That went on for 6 weeks. And eventually I went private, and they told me I'd pretty much destroyed my knee. So I've had 2 surgeries so far, and I've got another 2 coming. The first one was an arthroscopy, just to go in and look around and clear out all the crap they've got in my knee. The second one was an allograft ACL reconstruction. And what that means is allograft, it means it comes from someone else. So I had a cadaver ligament put in my knee. The ACL is your anterior cruciate ligament. It's the main kind of supporting structure that holds the top of your leg to the bottom of your leg. And reconstruction, the name says it all. So yeah, that was a pretty good surgery, to be honest. They opened me up as the surgical bit would suggest, but it was a tiny little incision. Excuse me. And it was all done pretty much keyhole. The biggest incision on that's about 1 inch long, which I thought was fascinating. That's kind of why I'm doing this as well. I've learned so much in the research from doing this surgery, and I didn't know if other people would be interested, so I thought I'd put it out there. And if people like it, then cool, and I'll keep talking about it as I get more and more surgeries. I've got another 2 to come. And because I'm private, I get DVDs from all my surgeries. So I get to sit and watch it back, and I've always been fascinated by mathematics and mechanics and engineering. And when looking at the surgical DVDs and the pictures, it's all just a set of mechanics. I find it really, really interesting. So my third surgery on this coming Wednesday, it's what's called a distal femoral osteotomy. Distal means away from your body. So, and femoral means of your femur. So if it was a proximal femoral osteotomy, proximal would be the joint closest to my body, which is my hip bone. But because it's distant, it's an osteotomy of my knee joint, but on the femur side, not the fibular side. Osteotomy just means osteo, bone, otomy. They're going to take a bit away. So long story short, they're going to take a piece of my femur away down by the knee end. All of this because my knee now points essentially the wrong direction, just by a few degrees, but it's enough to be causing quite severe problems. So they've got to go in and take a wedge out of my knee and then essentially bolt me back together again with some pretty gnarly looking screws. My surgeon's quite a preeminent surgeon. He's a professor of the word escapes me. Osteotic bone surgery. I'm a clever guy, but it's late. He's a professor, and because he's a professor, he's got a lot of teaching material out there, and he's got a YouTube channel devoted to it. And I was just Googling around looking for videos before ahead of time so I could kind of find out what exactly he was going to do. And I came across his YouTube channel, and it's very, very interesting. So I've gone and had a bunch of different x-rays. They've got a full leg x-ray to see how far off center my femur is from my fibula and my tibia. It's only a couple of degrees, so they need to take a slight wedge out of my knee joint on the femoral side, close it up, bolt them back together, and then my knee will point the right direction. And then the fourth surgery in X months' time will be a complete cartilage transplant with what's called an ActiFit, which is just an artificial cartilage pad. Surgery aside, that's pretty much all that's been going on at the minute. Just got my ticket to download. Stoked, couldn't be more stoked. Sat up with my friends yesterday, had some snacks and some drinks, and sat and listened to Dan P. Carter announcing all of the latest wave of bands. Couldn't be more happy for Korn. Deftones, not the Deftones. No, just Deftones. Couldn't be more excited to see them. I had tickets to see them in November in London, but because of my knee, I couldn't go. So couldn't be more happy for that. Not really bothered by Disturbed, I'll be honest. They're alright, not really my thing. Same with Nightwish, I appreciate them, but no, not really my thing. Maiden seen a bunch of times. They're good, but I'm kind of over it. Sabbath, couldn't be happier for. I haven't seen them before, and it's their last tour, so I really can't wait to see them. If anyone's interested, there's a documentary called Metal Headbanger's Journey, and I think it's by a guy called Sam Dunn. And he traces the genealogy, not the genealogy, but he's oh God, why am I so messed up tonight? An anthropologist, I beg your pardon. He's an anthropologist, and he traces back the lineage of metal and all of rock music through chord patterns and music structure and different trends and waves and things like that. And it all boils down to every riff, every new sound and every nuance and every every lick and every riff comes from Sabbath, essentially. It comes from two people, Sabbath and Zeppelin. And both of those started as blues, and we all know that rock came from blues. I think it's widely accepted now. But yeah, it's a very, very good documentary. It goes from now, modern day, back through new metal, through American hardcore, Lamb of God, all the way back. Just it's Metallica, Slayer, all the way back through the bands, and traces it all the way back. And he goes even further than that and traces the bands like Sabbath. And for example, he likens Eddie Van Halen, and who largely improvises a lot of what he does, to Chopin and Beethoven. And back in the day, these guys would load their orchestras up really with what's called an octabass, really deep, heavy sounds that would shake the rafters. So that was the metal of their time. It follows roughly exactly, that's a stupid thing to say. It follows roughly the same patterns and structures and chord progressions as rock music, some classical music. And we all know there's variations in classical music. What one piece will sound completely different to another, and it's different styles of music just because they were played on the same instruments and had roughly the same sounds to the untrained ear. He exposes that they're not at all. I mean, one guitar we know now could sound like a flamenco guitar, an acoustic guitar, but in the hands of someone else, it could sound brutal and horrific and heavy and nasty, and what a lot of people love. So to the untrained ear, as I said, these orchestras can sound the same, but there was metal back then. I hasten to say, there was heavy music back then, and they even used things like distortion. They actively distorted some of their sounds for that gravelly sound, and it's cool to think about if you look back then. Anyway, I digress. If you think about it and if you've got an hour to kill, Metal: A Headbanger's Journey, brilliant documentary, really insightful. It's not just one metalhead going in, and it's not a love letter to metal. It's really informed. This guy's a professional anthropologist, and he traces it back genuinely step by step through the ages, and it's really good. That's all I've got for tonight. I just wanted this one to be really short. I want a brief introduction. Again, it's just me in my room. If the sound quality is bad, I apologize, but I don't apologize. I'm hoping to get more equipment and start and keep moving forward and seeing what I can make of this. I've got no real idea what's going to come of it, but you know what? Hey ho, if you don't, closed mouth don't get fed and all that. Thank you very much, guys. Hopefully I'll speak again soon, and hopefully I'll get some followers. Follow me on Twitter at Joshua Wren. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.